Hi, I'm Jessica Lombard, proud superintendent of Huntley Community School District 158. Welcome back to RAIDER Roundtable. As we know, school districts have the amazing opportunity to educate students starting as early as 3 years old. But did you know that some of our students can continue through the age of 22? Last month we talked about our early childhood program and the foundations that are built to assist our children with being ready to begin their educational career. This month, I'd like to highlight a program that many of you, our listeners, may not be familiar with. In 2013, Huntley 158 launched the LIGHT program with the aim of providing transitional services for students with special needs ages 18 to 22. What exactly is the LIGHT program? And what are these services and opportunities available to our young adults? To help answer these questions and provide awareness of this amazing program, we have the LIGHT principal, Mr. Keith Panke, here with us today. Welcome, Keith.
Hi, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Keith, you've been with us for a number of years in Huntley
Yes.
158, and through that time you've had a variety of different roles and responsibilities. Mm-hmm. Will you take us on a little journey of the roles that you've had here in Huntley 158?
Yes, so back in the 11-12 school year, I started off as one of our special education teachers at the Huntley High School, teaching the SES program, which is our self-contained program, one of our self-contained programs for students with emotional disabilities. Did that for about 4 years, enjoyed it, loved the students, and then an opportunity arose where a special ed coordinator came about, and I applied for that. I've always wanted to be in leadership. When I first moved to Illinois, I went back to school to get my academic leadership degree because I knew I always wanted to kind of work in education at a more broader level. Sure. So that was my first opportunity. And I spent a year as a coordinator at the middle school at Marlow Middle School and Huntley High School, and then transitioned into the Huntley High School department chair role when that opened up. Spent a couple years there doing that. Mm-hmm. And then the assistant principal role at Marlow Middle School opened up, and I spent 5 years at Marlow Middle School as one of their assistant principals overseeing special services. And then this position was created a few years ago, and I knew it was yet another opportunity to keep moving forward and working in education at an even more broader level with a little bit more leadership responsibilities.
So Keith, staying with us here at Huntley 158, those roles changed a little bit. But one thing that remained constant was that all of the positions that you were in tied around the realm of special education. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about why did you go into special education growing up, going into the whole world of education? There's lots of different things, but what drew you to working with special needs populations?
Well, I guess I've always had a desire to be needed, I guess. No. Special education, there's definitely a need for people to be working in that area. Sure. I knew I would get a lot of self-fulfillment helping the highest need students in education, and I just knew I could go home every day and knowing that I'm making a difference for the ones who I know need the most help, and that was the motivation for me. I also have some personal ties to, some siblings that were in special education when they were in school, and I saw some of the hardships they went through, and I wanted to make it better for others. So that was another motivator for me to choose this area.
Well, speaking on behalf of the district, thinking about all of the students and the families that you've impacted, whether they were when you were at the high school, when you were at our middle school, mm-hmm. now in the position that you're in now, you've touched so many lives. And I think that you are the perfect combination of leader and individual who has really truly made an impact on our special education world here in Huntley 158. So thank you for that.
I would like to think so.
You said a few years ago this position became available. We had coordinators that kind of oversaw our LIGHT program. I mentioned earlier, it started in 2013, but it went from coordinator position. We had a director kind of role, but right. A few years back, invested in having the LIGHT principal. What drew you to that position, and why were you so interested in becoming the principal of the LIGHT program?
Well, fortunately, actually, that first year as a coordinator, that was one of my items I oversaw was the LIGHT program, and it was just for that 1 year. But I got that taste of what the LIGHT program was trying to accomplish.
Sure.
I really enjoy, I guess, the variety of the environments that a transition program operates, like being in the community, being in an educational setting, work settings, and just I need that variety for me personally. The transition age is such an important, I guess, time for students because it's that last attempt to build skills to get them as ready as possible. I think another big piece of transition is working with families and connecting them to adult resources and supports and helping them navigate the plethora of things that are out there in the community that help support our students. And and just working with the young adults and being out in the community just was very desirable. I also knew that the Light program was in need of some direction and reorganization to give them the same opportunities as staff in other buildings get in regards to just anywhere from professional development and organizations and the right structures and processes. And I think every administrator has that desire to work in a role where you can create, develop, and make better. And obviously the Light program was that opportunity. And of course, it fit my goal of being pretty special services focused. And so I jumped on that opportunity and I appreciate the fact that I was able to get it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for applying for that and having that interest. Keith, you talked a little bit about the different environments of the Light program and the transition program. Tell our viewers, what exactly is a transition program?
Right.
And you said there was some community-based, there were some different settings. What does that look like? Right.
I'll try to keep this as concise as possible. For people who don't know, transition services start when a student with an IEP is at the age of 14. Legally.
Sure.
Ideally, and this is something that we're working on right now, is educating our families and our students even earlier on, even at elementary age, of what's to come is important. So transition services start around that 8th grade time, where you really start talking about what do you want to do after high school, in 3 main areas: independent living, employment, and post-secondary education and training.
Sure.
So the transition services ideally, start in middle school, and then we work with our students in the high school, and they each have a post-secondary outcome or goal in those 3 areas of what they want. How do they want to live independently? Do we want to live in a supported living arrangement? Do we want to live on our own? Do we want to go to college? Do we want to go straight into getting a job? Do we want to work in the trades? All those different things. So they have these outcomes. Ideally, we would want those students to have the skills and plans and connections when they graduate high school. For some of our students, they just need more time to build those skills to actually reach those goals. So they don't have to settle for something that they didn't really want. So we have that opportunity to have those 4 extra years, if needed, to help them reach those post-secondary outcomes. So that's really the kind of the general synopsis of what transition services are, helping them in all those 3 areas. Every district does it differently, but I know with the Light program, what we needed to do was create a program that kind of bridges that gap between an educational setting and what a community setting's like. Obviously, the community setting is very different than an educational environment. The way I like to explain it is like, education is like a one-stop shop. You get everything. You go to one building every day, and you kind of get everything there. But we all know that's not what life is like. Life activities, your job, any services you go to, or anything, it's all spread out in the community. So we wanted to create that, I guess, bridge between a one-stop shop to almost getting that feeling of what it's like to be out in the community and have to go to different places to get certain things that you need in your life. So that's where we kind of took that direction of immersing our program into the community in separate buildings that focus on those 3 areas of transition.
So you mentioned that starting at 14, each of our students starts to think about that post-secondary after they graduate, and what are the goals, what ambitions do they have, what would they like to continue to work on. And so when you think about those transition services in the Light program, each one of our students has different goals. They have each of their aspirations may look very, very different than another young adult who's part of that program. And so to be able to service each one of the students, to be able to provide them opportunities, like you said, it doesn't fit in a one-stop shop or one school.
Right.
And so tell us a little bit about, we have what are called different tiers or levels, if you will. Is that changed a little bit over time?
That has changed because, again, that actually, by having even tiers almost puts them in positions where you can only get what's ever available at that tier, right? So we wanted to be more personalized.
Right.
So how do we do that? So it's creating a structure in these multiple buildings where we can vary a student's time in those different buildings to really put more emphasis on an area that they really need to develop. So if someone really wants to focus on employment and they have their basic living skills down to where they know they'll be able to live in that independent living goal that they have, we're not going to make them go to the independent living center for multiple days or equal days as compared to how many days they're at the employment center. So we would vary that, and that's how I guess one way to personalize their to help them reach their goals is by simply what days they're at which buildings.
Would it be easy to say what a typical day would be for a student in a light program similar to a student at the high school?
No. Again, we want to be student-centered, and student-centered does not mean easy for the staff and for the logistics of making sure we are being personalized, because we're talking some students have internships at one location, some are taking classes at MCC, some are obviously working at Dyke Park, working on independent living skills, and some are going out in the community and doing community-based instruction. So yeah, every day is different, but so is life, and it's very hard to describe it about what every student's day is like, but it's very different for each person. But we know that we're doing it right by knowing that each person is being as personalized as possible right now.
Absolutely. The light program has been housed in a number of different locations,
right?
But when we think about it, it was always one location,
right?
We had a fantastic celebration in January of this year because we had a ribbon cutting, and it removed the central hub, if you will, of the light program from Marlowe, one of our middle schools that had space, and a location there to what we call our Vine Street.
Right.
And that's the central hub. You've mentioned Dyke Park, you've mentioned community outings, MCC, internships. So there's a vast number of environments that our young adults have opportunities to participate and to expand on their skills depending on their goals there.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about how did that transition from a one building model into what it is today come to fruition?
So, obviously, like you said, they were based in different buildings wherever space was.
Sure.
And, the light, I think every program, just like we talked about early childhood in the last session, they want their own space. That's always been a desire of the transition program since it's been created, is to have their own space to practice the skills that we need to work on. I think what happened from my experience of being in the district at the time was, when they're at Marlowe Middle School, our school campuses they're in neighborhoods, they're surrounded by cornfields, it's not really immersed in the community.
Sure.
But still there was always this desire to maybe stay attached to one of the buildings, because that's how a lot of districts are doing it. They have a one-stop shop approach, whether it's attached to a building or one building, because logistically it is a lot easier to provide those services because everyone's in the same spot. However, I know the families spend a lot of time on different committees talking about this need, speaking at board meetings, knowing that, our students who are in the light program deserve their own spot. There was a committee that was meeting with architectures about how we could maybe change one of our buildings to house our program similar to ECC. And, they have some great ideas. Again, there's definitely some pros to having a one building where everything kind of happens there. But if you think about that end goal of making sure we're bridging that gap and they're not feeling like they're falling off a cliff when they're done with school services, it's being in a building in our district attached to a district building, the best spot to really give them that experience. And of course, looking at how much it would cost to add on to a building was very costly as well. Fortunately, many might know our assistant superintendent, Miss Dee Dee Gill, came into our district around that same time that planning was happening, and was like, and talked a lot about the student-centered approach. What do we really want to do to help our students get that experience in the community on a day-to-day basis? So that's where we started doing that research into the community of finding multiple buildings. Again, one large building could work, but we wanted to make sure we didn't lose that end goal of being student-centered in the way that life is going to be like once they're done.
I remember when she started driving to a couple different locations,
Yes.
showing her, Dee Dee, here's this that could turn into kind of that vocational center,
Right.
practicing some of those skills, and even be able to have a storefront in front. And then taking her, hey, Dee Dee, you have a little bit more time. Let's drive down and showed the Dyke Park building,
Right.
and what that could be. And
Right.
that excitement was really there to be able to look at it again, to be able to meet the personalized goals of each of our young adults.
Right.
One facility wasn't going to meet that. And again, when you think about even jobs and internships,
Right.
we have so many different partnerships and facilities that our young adults are able to go out into the community, again, as they transition.
Right.
So while our schools are in the community, it's a little bit different when we think about each one of these locations. They're truly embedded in the community,
Right.
where our students, our young adults, are now able to go and be part. When we talk about recreation, we talk about leisure activities. You're able to go over to the park district and the rec
Right.
center and some of these other areas where they're getting real world experiences and
Right.
practice, so that after the age of 22, that transition is much easier.
Right. I think I forgot to mention, like our 3 centers, we have one at Dyke Park. I don't know if anyone knows where the radio station is, but that same building
Right.
is divided in half, and we have half of the building. And that's our independent living center.
And so you do day trips there that
Yes.
incorporate what?
That incorporate, I mean, it depends on what the student needs, but we have a washer dryer there. We have a smaller kitchen for helping with learning how to meal prep for themselves. We do utilize some space up at the rec center where they have a larger kitchen if we want to talk more about like what it's like to work in a kitchen, like for a job.
Mm-hmm.
But so we have some basic living skills opportunities in that building with the washer and dryer, the kitchen, as well as some rec and leisure activities we can do there. However, some of our students who are aspiring to live on their own may be doing more research of what it actually takes to live in an apartment.
Okay.
Understanding that there's a rental agreement. You have to have good credit, a good income in order to even for a apartment complex to even let you rent an apartment there. So helping them really learn what it takes to live on your own. We also do day trips out from that center because you almost think of that as your home. So I'm at home. How do I get from my home to that cool activity that's happening in the community? Mm-hmm. So we kind of help them to feel that way by knowing, okay, Dyke's your home, but there's a cool event happening in downtown Huntley. How are we going to get there? What's the best way? We can call Pace, so we can model that for them by calling our own driver, and we have our own bus for our program to help us simulate that opportunity.
Keith, let's talk about that. I'll divert for just a second.
Yeah.
There are parts of the would you say you're kind of simulating what that might look like?
Right.
One of the other things that this past school year, the district and special services invested in were some vans,
Yep.
minivans, and smaller buses, if you will. The students are still coming to the program on our yellow
Yep.
school buses.
Yep.
However, wanting to have that more real feel, we don't have a lot of public transportation
Right.
in the area, but how did that come to be with wanting to purchase some vehicles that might be a little bit more like public transportation, and what was the rationale behind that?
Well, the rationale is it really comes down to flexibility. If we really want to personalize, we can't find out about every opportunity that's out in our community within ample time to be able to request a bus, make sure there's a bus driver available.
Right.
And we were running into those barriers a lot before we had the vehicles. So we knew that we needed that ability to, we find out the day before that there's a really cool event happening at,
Sure.
let's say, the library or maybe downtown Huntley or at MCC or somewhere in our community, or maybe there's a job shadow opportunity that comes through and we need to get our student there because they're available the next day. So we really just came down to like needing that flexibility to get our students to the different opportunities that they're doing, whether it's an internship or a rec and leisure opportunity, and be able to again personalize someone's day by getting them to where they need to go, as well as obviously being able to help students learn what it's like to be on that type of transportation, because I know the county is trying to develop their public transportation through MC Ride,
Right.
and stuff like that, and MC Ride Connect, where they're partnering with Uber and stuff like that. So we have to help the students know how to even make that phone call and stuff, and so forth. So that's really what Dike Park does for us. But like you said, it's on the grounds of Huntley Park District, which is definitely a place where they could visit and go to when they're done with us. Health and fitness is a huge piece of independent living, so we partner with the Park District on a gym membership to where they can go to the gym up there with us or without us during the weekends to help them learn how health and fitness is a very important part of lives to be able to have a good life, and a long life. So again, it's in the community. They can go and look into what the Park District has to offer. But of course, they go out into the community and do all sorts of things. Very quick about Vine Street, we call it our Light Employment Center. That is where we have, obviously it speaks for itself, it's where we work on the job skills. We'll probably talk a little bit more about this soon, but like we have the opportunity, the idea is to provide some instruction in the building. We had a great partnership. We actually had a family reach out to us, to the district, around that same time we were thinking about making this shift from adding on to one of our buildings to looking for more buildings that were immersed in our community, saying that they had a building that they thought we might want. And that's the one right next door to Tefano's.
And I'd love to give a shout out to the Panslops.
Yep.
They, from the very beginning, heard about this need and really walked alongside the district to say, how can we partner? How can we help assist
Right.
in this endeavor? And they have been a fantastic partner and really helped Vine Street come to fruition.
I mean, it was great. It was a blank slate. It was an empty building, basically,
Right.
and they consulted with us the whole time to make sure he renovated it in a way that would meet our needs, according to school code. And that's why it was able to be, as well as our needs that we knew we were going to have to be able to do to kind of help simulate a work environment, as well as providing some prerequisite opportunities in that building, but also be able to create our business. We'll talk more about that later, but I wanted to talk a little bit about just what Vine Street does. So Vine Street is more of our hub for employment. We do some stuff in-house with many different workstations and job tasks and taking care of the building itself, exploring. We have curriculums that we can do career exploration, virtual internships, a lot of helping the students explore and learn what direction they want to go, because for some of our students, they're still trying to really figure out what they want because they haven't had a chance to explore as much as we were hoping for them to. We also get them out of the building for internships, paid employment, part-time employment, meaningful work experiences out there, ranging from job shadows to internships to paid employment. Competitive paid employment is our goal as well.
So you mentioned kind of the business aspect.
Right.
There's a storefront that was purposely built
Yes.
on that location, and we're starting to dabble into that venture.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about it. They've come up with a name. They've got some ideas. Share with us what's going to be happening very, very soon.
Yeah. So obviously having a student-run business is a huge way to help build prerequisite skills before a student goes out in the community and has more competitive employment. Build that confidence, build that experience of what it's like to have a job and so forth. We always wanted to have a business. I know like Huntley High School has a business and their transition service programs, at the high school, Sensibility with the making candles. We obviously needed a business too. And the storefront, we wanted a point of sale opportunity where that we could open the doors to the community, simulate a more kind of work environment of what it would be like to work in a space like that. So that building did provide that opportunity to have a storefront. And we spent the last couple of years really learning what it takes to get a business started. We definitely wanted the students involved. So they helped develop the name.
Ooh, what is that name?
It's the name is Lightworks.
Great.
The idea behind there is we didn't want to tie ourselves down with like one product.
Sure.
Because once that's up and going, then the future students wouldn't have the opportunity to create and think of ideas. So we wanted to keep the name more general, like Lightworks, so we had different options. And we wanted to, each year for our students to look at what we've done in the past, starting this year, and either make adjustments to that or have other ideas so we could incorporate it on that umbrella of Lightworks.
They're currently in the process of getting the first venture of the year up and going. What does that look like? How can we find out information, and how can we support Lightworks?
Right. So right now, so one of our ideas that we came up with working with our students is Spirit Wear, or Huntley School District Spirit Wear collection donation drive, where we then would do a resale of Spirit Wear. And the opportunity, I guess the best time to do that would be at the beginning of the year. Of course, this is our first year trying it. So right now, actually, we're doing a drive, a donation drive right now, where we're asking families and staff, because we want both staff and student Spirit Wear, to donate their lightly used Spirit Wear that, maybe we've had fifth graders that are now at the middle school and they don't want to be seen wearing their elementary Spirit Wear anymore. So instead of throwing it away or donating it somewhere else, we're asking for people to bring it into their school buildings. Each office right now has a donation box. It finishes this week. We've been doing it last week and this week. It's been in newsletters. So that's how people can help with that venture right now. Obviously, the more Spirit Wear we get, the more ability we'll have to sell to people. And then once our students will be able to inventory and launder and organize and get the sale event ready to be able to sell it. We're hoping to have an online presence in the future. We want our students involved in the marketing in the future and all those different aspects of running a business, whether it's accounting. We have like the Square to be able to take in payment, I don't know exactly when, because we're not sure how much Spirit Wear we'll get. We know there's stuff in those boxes. I know we need more, but we really want to do this right and make sure that we're well organized to be able to do a sale event. And what that would look like would be for a couple weeks, we'd be open for a certain amount each day or maybe a few days each week, and we would advertise that through social media, school newsletters, and so forth, to help people be aware that we're trying to sell the Spirit Wear. And we hope staff come, maybe they're new to the district and they missed that opportunity to buy their school Spirit Wear at the beginning of the year, and they can come in and buy what they can find there to have some Spirit Wear and help our families get some too.
There's some thoughts about plant sales and other business ventures throughout the school year, but one of the pieces, regardless of what item they're selling or creating, it's the skills that our young adults are taking away. You've learned a lot about what it takes to get a business up and going, but the students will have to apply and interview for different roles, and they will be in these different positions to really get a taste as to what does that application process, the interview process, and then the day-to-day job skills under their belt. And that might change, right? They may be very interested in one, and then through this, the t-shirt resale may say, maybe that's not for me. I'd like to try something different when it's the plant sales. So there's a lot of education and practice and things going on in the back end of what this business is all about.
Yeah, I think that's where this idea of having a more general business plan, of having different opportunities throughout the year and across multiple years, to give those students that chance to create. Entrepreneurship is a huge piece of a lot of our students that we're coming to find out, that to help make some supplemental income by selling something that they've created and so forth. So we wanted to make sure that piece was there. Of course, running a business, there's so many different job duties to where we can incorporate many different levels of ability in the business, ranging from helping with point of sale and doing the sales to organizing the clothes and sorting. A lot of our students are, working on how to sort and use price tag guns and stuff like that to help label all the different things, stocking, to other job opportunities like the marketing piece and maybe web page development, online stores, accounting, and all, going out and advertising and all that's, creating the flyers and so forth. But we want the students to go through that job obtainment process of preparing for an interview and and having a couple people who feeling that competition
Right.
of I'm not the only one who wants this job, and
And
there's
what
a chance,
happens if
and
I
what
don't
and what
get
happens
it?
if I
Right.
don't,
Yeah.
and then going through that interview and then meeting the job requirements and being able to show that and being evaluated on your job and being told whether you're doing a good job or not, right? So
Well, it's great to feel and see the passion and excitement you have around this, and knowing and being, in many of our locations, seeing the excitement of our young adults. They know that this is coming
Right.
up, and to be able to see and feel that excitement. I can't wait for our community to be able to have that storefront open, and we will absolutely, you talked about that marketing, get that out there
Yeah.
and publicize those things. But I'd like to take a shift a little bit away
Right.
from that piece of it. Early on, you talked about working with our families. And the LIGHT program, obviously it's for our young adults 18 to 22, but there's a lot of education that our staff, that you do
Right.
with our families. You want to touch on that a little bit about what it is that we do for the parents and the families as well?
Right. Yeah, that is a huge piece of the whole process of helping preparing our students for adult life.
Right.
There's a lot of different options out in the community. There's a lot of things that need to be in place with certain, there's the puns list. There's many different aspects of making. Even as simple as having sometimes you have to make sure you have a state ID and so forth. So there's a lot of aspects of making in order to get your child the necessary supports they might need in the community. We have a huge educational piece and an obligation to help our families learn what they need to do now and what they maybe should have done sooner. We are working with our families through our Thriving Futures Parent Ed Night once a month that any family with a child in our district with an IEP will get invitations, and they should have received them this year too. Once a month to educate our families. But in the LIGHT program, we're doing that even more because it's kind of crunch time for our families. So we develop action plans for our families to know, what are some things we have to get done this year? Is it setting up a bank account? Is it applying for Social Security? Is it exploring apartment complexes or different different organizations that provide SILAs, which are community integrated living arrangements, which is basically a house in a neighborhood that like Pioneer Center or Clearbrook or one of these local organizations have purchased and remodeled to accommodate a small group of adults with disabilities who need support living on their own. And a lot of parents don't know about that stuff. And they don't know that it's come a long way since 20, 30 years ago when there wasn't as much opportunity to have that type of arrangement. Right. So we spend a lot of time, our parent-teacher conferences are surrounding developing those action plans and really helping our families know what is out there and what their child actually is eligible for and what needs to happen now in order to not create barriers in the future that won't allow them to get those supports if they need them.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So it is a lot of different components to really building up a successful program. And
Right.
like we said, it started in 2013, and now we are sitting here in 2025.
Right.
And the program continues to grow
Yes.
and enhance to meet the needs of all of our students and our families. Our staff are constantly thinking about new opportunities or ways to change, and to have that flexible mindset, right? To go from one building to multiple locations was a challenge, and it was a change. However, the staff at the LIGHT program have really embraced that and have that passion to make sure that every one of our young adults and their families are prepared for what happens after that 22nd birthday, and making sure that they are future ready. We've talked a lot about things over the course of the start of the school year when we think about our strategic plan 2030, and that future ready is extremely important. And I'm so grateful that you've touched on that actually starts at the age of 14, to really be thinking about the opportunities that we need to do to personalize for every one of our young adults.
Yeah, and what we're really trying to do through that Thriving Futures is to help our families learn about the think part. Should happen even before 14, to where you should have a little bit better idea of what your options are and what your goals are, so you can actually pick them when you turn 14. So trying to make a goal when you don't have any background information is a lot harder. So then you're relying on others to tell you what to do. And I think that's a big piece of our program. Is self-determination is a huge piece. We want to make sure that our plans for the student is what the student wants and for themselves. And sometimes that's hard because it may not be aligned with what others want for that student. And we help navigate that situation. I think, for instance, I know we forgot to talk about MCC. So one of the obviously big pieces I mentioned was post-secondary education and training. Obviously, MCC, being a local community college, is a place where some of our students need to go in order to reach their career goal, whether it's getting an associate's degree or a certification program or just some continuing ed classes that help build their knowledge in that area that they want to work in, like whether it's cooking or computers or whatever it may be. We partner with MCC by renting out some classroom space there. Some of our teachers are over there to help prepare our students who have that post-secondary ed goal of needing that higher level education. And we've had students who have exposed themselves to, and have explored the post-secondary education, and it's ended up not being something they wanted. They wanted to focus more on getting a job, and we want to make sure that we let them know that the implications on that decision, but also not tell them, no, you have to do that, because no, this is their life and this is what we want to do. But the MCC piece is also huge to make sure our students are getting that exposure, because some of our students may not know that's what they want until they see it. Maybe they've always been told they're not going to college or something, and then they go and visit, like, wait, I didn't know I could do this, and maybe a certification program or a continuing ed class in the college environment. And so we want to make sure we help our students learn that pathway too.
What are the different opportunities being able to provide that, help guide them with the goals that are specific, providing the support that might be needed, but then over the course of time, pulling back gradually that support so that they are ready and confident to, tackle transitioning off into the adult world outside of our programs there. Keith, before we round up, we've talked a lot about our families, our staff, our students, but to really be able to have an effective program for our students to be able to transition again into their adult goals, we need to partner with our community, our local businesses. If we had a call to action to those that are in our community and our local businesses, what would that be? How can they help to support the LIGHT program? How can they find out more information, or if they are interested in internships or job opportunities, what would they do? How would they reach out to you?
Yes, we have our own job coaches that go out in the community with some of our students who need that on-the-job support. And we reach out to businesses all the time asking if they're willing to take on interns. Or simple job shadows, allowing us to come in and see what it's like to work in that environment and so forth. We have other organizations that, allow us to actually, support the interview process, actually get a paid job and stuff like that. We have a lot of businesses that we currently work with, but we're always looking for more, because in order to personalize a student's goals of an environment they want to work in, we want to have more options for them.
I believe it may have been last year. You talked a little bit about job coaches, facilitators going out, looking for opportunities for our students, but to have that personalization. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we had a student who had a talent for towel folding. And it took me to think about some hotels or resorts, cruise ships that have characters, if you will, that were designed out of towels. So this was a talent and a passion of one of our students. And so that was something that our job coaches went out and found an opportunity. With a local business.
I think it was at Hampton Inn, and so forth. Yeah, I have a whole list of places that we currently work with. A lot of our businesses that we work with, they may have a sticker on their door that says, proud supporter of the Light program and so forth. But we have students at many different places like food service, Pet Supplies Plus. We got Rookies. I really like to just to show how much variety we already have. Pinecrest Country Club, Heritage Woods, the Retirement Center, Holiday Inn, Dick's Sporting Goods, Goodwill, Able Thrift Store, Pet Supplies Plus, Walgreens, Rookies, Hampton Inn. We actually have a student who's working with our high school tech department at the Huntley High School and learning some things. We got Village Inn, Blessed Little Kitchen, Culver's, Jewel, Restore, like Habitat for Humanity, St. Mary's Church, Butcher on the Block. We've worked with Conrad's Bakery in the past, local floral shops. Like I mentioned, the Park District, and going to there for the fitness center. Northwestern Hospitals partner with us to do some group fit to work lessons over there at that fitness center there by the hospital. So lots of businesses already partner with us, whether it's for the health and fitness internships and actually hiring our students through the typical job attainment process,
Right.
and they just know we're working behind the scenes. But if there's a business out there that really, or an organization that wants to know more, we do have a general email, and basically just saying I'm a business looking for more information, and then that person who gets those emails can get you to the right person, whether it's myself or one of our transition facilitators to talk more about our program. We do have some information on our website, which has some basic information of what we're trying to do and how to contact us as well.
Every one of our students within the district, within the Light program, has something to offer our community, our local businesses,
Right.
and just society in general. And so if one of our staff members were to, that's part of their job, right? The job coaches may be reaching out, knocking on doors, if you will.
Right.
Keep an open mind, because again, the talents that each of our young adults has may be something that changes from year to year, and that the opportunity to be able to enhance the community experience is something that I just hope everybody is open to and really
Right.
can see how having the Light program embedded within the community really has
Right.
enhanced all components for every one of our stakeholders,
Right,
students, and the community alike.
Yeah, and again, there's not been a single person that we have talked to that has ever been resistant to wanting to help. It's more of knowing how. And reaching out is really the best way. I do want to recognize our staff and how hard they've worked through these transitions ourselves over the last few years. It's been actually very motivating for me and inspiring to watch them still try to help our students while we're going through some pretty, tough transitions ourselves, by moving buildings in the middle of the year, by, buying new furniture, getting new curriculums, and continuing to plan and do while we're also teaching students who are still coming to us every day. It's not like things just got to stop while we developed.
Correct.
So watching our staff just do that day in and day out, and even though it's very difficult, has been inspiring me to work as hard as I can to get us to where we need to be. And it's, I just really want to make sure that I said that today, because that's a huge piece. And of course our students too, and who have gone through those transitions with us and have shown that resilience that they can do a lot more, and has built them skills in itself by going through that transition with us. Yeah.
I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank all of our staff. I would like to thank all of our community partners, current and future,
yes.
that really have developed the Light program to what it is today. I am so excited to continue to see the evolution, because it will change over time. It will need to change. Our students' goals and ambitions and desires will change over
Right.
time. And so, Keith, I know you're the right person to lead this Light program into
Thank you.
its future endeavors. And again, thank you so much for sharing a lot about your background, your history, the things that are happening in our Light program today,
Right.
and for what's going to come to the future. So again, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. It was very exciting to be here to talk about the Light program.
And a big thank you to the Huntley Area Public Library for the use of their recording studio. But before signing off, here's a little fun fact. Did you know that the LIGHT program name is actually an acronym? LIGHT stands for Life Instruction Guiding Huntley Transition. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of RAIDER Roundtable, where it's all students always. Until next time.